Hello everyone and welcome to our interviews with EFT masters worldwide. And today we introduce Alina Frank. She is one of the best trainer of trainers in EFT, master practitioner, and she also is a trainer of Matrix 3 imprinting. She's a student of Rabbi Emanuel Legomsky that our guys in Russia may know, and she mentored thousands of people. You were tapping with thousands of people, is it? And you trained hundreds of them, and you wrote few books, and especially I'm very interested in book How to Want Sex Again with EFT. That is probably will be our topic today. But before we do this, can you just tell to our audience your story, how you found EFT, why EFT? What is your story of finding it?
Yes. My story was that I had a stillborn. I was 9 months pregnant with my first child, and the baby died. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest trauma that I had suffered in my life up to that point. And I went into all kinds of emotional and health problems. And for 12 years, I tried to find something to help myself recover from all of the injury, the impact on my body, and nothing would help me for very long. I hired and fired about 10 different doctors. I changed my diet all kinds of different ways. I went from vegan and back to eating like bone marrow and, you know, the whole thing. I did nutritional supplements. I did traditional acupuncture and Chinese medicine for a year. I did Ayurvedic medicine. I did homeopathy. I did essential oils. I did it all. And nothing was really helping me. And one day, as these things go, I said, if I'm meant to heal from this, I can't figure it out anymore. I'm just going to release it, and I give up. And in that, a few weeks later, I discovered EFT from Gary Craig.
In what year it happened?
2004, I discovered EFT. Mm-hmm. And it was back when there was nothing online except for Gary Craig's manual. And so when I hear people say you have to believe it in order for it to work, I'm here to tell you that that is not true. Because I had tried everything, and I thought, the stupid thing that I'm tapping on my face, what is that going to do? And I've tried all these other things and all these other experts, and no one's helped me. So I said, let me just try it. And within a few weeks, I started having to reduce my medications because I was feeling so much better. And so that was
Was it with Gary Craig himself on his seminars?
No, it was through his online manual.
Okay. But, so you just found it online and tried online?
That was the only thing that there was available back then, was his manual and his website.
You mean this website, emofree.com? You have nobody telling you this, you have no, as a practitioner, you just download it from the internet?
Exactly. Now, I like to teach the science, evidence-based model of EFT tapping, the version that's been applied for the research that's been done. There's a lot of variations out there. Mm-hmm. But I made the connection with what Gary was saying in the manual, which is events in your history cause traumas to live in your body and cause illness. Mm-hmm. I made that connection because I knew what the trauma was. It was the loss of my daughter. So I had many aspects and many events within that huge trauma. I had to work on, moments of, leaving the hospital without a baby. I had to leave, thinking about how I had prayed for a child for so many years. I get pregnant, my first one, and it dies. All of these things I really worked on. So it took me about 3 weeks. Once I started feeling like, oh, I'm feeling a little better. And I would write down what another aspect, and I was tapping on myself night and day for about 3 weeks. And that was it. It was like my body just kicked in, and I was...
How many hours a day?
Yeah. So I had 2 little kids at that time. And so when they would go to school, and I wasn't working, I would spend, so probably 6 hours a day tapping on myself. Yeah. And then I called Gary, and I said, okay, so this is crazy. How, I need to know more, because I was just like feeling good. I didn't care. But then I decided, this is so amazing. I want to start helping people. And then I want to teach others to help people. And that's really how it started. Yeah.
And how did you get to Ma'alot trauma caring thing?
Yeah. So I met Rabbi Lagomsky in a master training years before in Colorado. And he said, I'm looking for someone in Seattle because I want to do a trauma training in Seattle. So I invited him here, and he did a trauma training, and we were still connected. And he said, and then he sent me an invitation, and he said, I'm doing a film, and I want to use mostly matrix reimprinting to help people with Ma'alot and the massacre that happened there, and the trauma that these people still live with all these years later. And so I said, okay, and I got on a plane, and I was filmed on, working with people in this, and it was a wonderful experience. Yes.
And now you're helping people, now you're training trainers to work with relationships issues. So what amazing stories of relationship issues of your clients or your students and their clients you have? Yes.
So what happened, what I tell people happens with EFT is you're going down your life path, and there's a big giant rock that's sitting in your path, and it feels like you can't move forward without working on that, because it's always coming up. For me, that was my health, and I had to turn that around. And then years went by, and then all of a sudden I started attracting clients that were in bad marriages, that were in what we call sexless marriages, no sex marriages. And week after week after week, I was attracting those clients. And it was a sign from the universe that it was about me. So then the next big boulder in my path was, oh my God, I have to find something to help. I've got to work through my relationship problems. And I don't want to have sex. I'm terrified of having sex. So I worked on myself, and I asked for a divorce, which was a big deal. No one in my family had gotten divorced. And then working on my sex issues and my sex challenges and my insecurities around sex. And being raised Catholic, and that's such a terrible thing, and the stigma, and who am I? I don't look like the type of person that would go out and, proclaim to be a sex expert. So there was a lot of healing for me around this issue. But I also saw with all of the clients that I was seeing that many of the issues, whether it's money or relationship or health, or I can't ask for a raise, or it was many times related to sexual injury, not just childhood sexual abuse. There's a lot of that. I had no idea, all the way to, someone grabbed me, or someone said something to me, or they touched me inappropriately. So that's what I decided to do. And so, everything from men with erectile dysfunction, lots of porn addiction, things like, for women, it's vaginismus, which is an atrophy of the vagina. There's all kinds of cysts and fibroids and all things that happen, that ovarian cancer, things like that. There's a reason why those issues show up in a particular part of your body.
And what about some emotional causes for women diseases? Do you work with like emotional causes and then disease in women?
Absolutely. To me, they're so connected. There's no way to separate them. Mm-hmm. So there's a saying, which is that because people say, oh, it's my hormones. I don't have a libido anymore. I've gone through menopause and all of that. And there's a saying, which is that your hormones and the shifts in your hormones actually follow your emotions, not your hormones change, although they affect your emotions. It's really that you've got to work on the emotions and your hormones will take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. So if there is an underlying feeling that sex is dangerous, right? And I'm subconscious, I'm not even aware of it. So I have this thought, sex is dangerous because I've been in situations in my past where I was touched and I didn't want to be touched. Then I might contract something or have an illness in my body that would prevent me from having sex.
Yes.
Everything from migraines to fibromyalgia to all kinds of things I've seen in women that do not want to have sex. And so we have to heal, like, okay, where does that come from?
Yes.
What's in your history that needs to be dealt with so that you can have a healthy sex life? Because what I have realized is that it's a taboo subject. It's at the heart of so many problems. And if we don't look at it and heal it, it comes out in other ways. You can step on a banana and try to say like, no, I don't want to see that banana, but you step on it and it oozes out everywhere. And you got oozy banana on your foot, on your shoe. So you have to deal with it, or else it's gonna come up. And when you have healed from some of your sexual problems, and you say, wow, a healthy sexual expression is part of what makes us human, and it could be such a good. There are all these studies that show that it's a source of happiness. It's a source of connection with your partner. It helps you with your blood pressure, your cholesterol level. It helps you with your energy level. It helps with pain management. Having a good, healthy sex life is part of being human, but we have all of these programs and all of our history that gets in the way of us being able to express that.
Yes, and what amazing stories do you have?
Okay, so there was a person who was terrified of bald men. Okay, so bald men was terrifying, and you can't go out in public without running into men that have no hair. Mm-hmm. And so this person's world got smaller and smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. And we worked on an event that happened in a basement where she was playing doctor with a friend. You know, playing doctor, is that a Russian thing too? Children play.
Yes.
Yes. And what was really interesting about that story was that it wasn't that anything terrible happened in that exploration. It was that mom found out. Mm-hmm. And mom told her she couldn't be friends with that girl anymore. And they were best friends. Mm-hmm. And so what was the bald connection? The bald connection. Yes. Yeah, the bald connection was that on a shelf in the basement, there was a doll that was a clown with no hair. And that was and that was all subconscious. She didn't realize it until we started working on that memory. And then so we have, where we live, there's a wonderful coffee shop, and the owner happens to be bald. And so the final test was that she would go and order coffee from him and not feel terrified. And that was it. It changed, and she was healed from that.
Yes. Do you have some stories about marriage where a couple is going to divorce because because of the sexual issues, and then you work on some trauma and they realize that now they feel good?
Yes. And so it depends on the level of trauma that's in their history. But I've worked with a couple I worked with a couple that were very, very, very religious. And they did not want to have sex before marriage. But they were so scared of having sex that they wanted it to be very special when they had their wedding night. And so I worked with her alone on her feelings and the things she had heard about how terrible and painful sex is. And I worked with him on some things he had done in his past that he wasn't proud of. He was full of shame. And they had a beautiful honeymoon. So that's all I can say.
I mean, you worked before their wedding.
Before their wedding. And then there are couples where the man, because I think men nowadays are very much told that they need to be sensitive, that they need to ask permission, that they have to wait until the woman.
In Western world, in America, yes.
Yeah. And so there are couples where the man is patient and he's patient and he's patient and he's patient, and the woman had so much negative history around sexual injury that when they were one interesting case, and it's repeated, I've seen it before, where before marriage, sex was great. Sex was fantastic, over the top, lots of lust for each other. The minute they got married, boom, all of that shut down. And the connection was, now I am married to this person. Now they are my family, and they are not safe anymore. A stranger is safe. Someone I'm not married to or I'm in a family with is safe, but a person in my family is not safe. And that had to do with being molested as a child by the father.
You mean the girl was molested?
The girl was molested by her father. And so that was too close to husband-father. Boyfriend, dating, woohoo, everything's great. But the minute they entered into the marriage, that was it. All of that shut down. And it was a wonderful opportunity for healing. And it saved their marriage for sure.
So after they were married, became again like fascinating experience with your husband?
Yes, open to having sex, feeling good about having sex. Not seeing sex as something dirty, but something to explore with a partner.
In general, how many sessions does it take for usual, if it's appropriate to use for usual couple to make some usual trauma healing? How many sessions?
It really depends. I'm not working with new clients anymore, but when I was, I would have them sign on for a minimum of 6 sessions. And we saw some huge progress with that, but depends on their life experience, whether that's months. I mean, I think the longest I worked with someone was for 2 years on sexual injury things. But yeah, and some of the things happen rather quickly. I know that there was someone who one of the issues that I see among young men is something called porn-induced erectile dysfunction. So we live in the digital age, and especially young boys, they are curious and they learn about sex on a computer. And it's the worst way, because it doesn't tell you or teach you about the nuances, the difference between seeing two people having sex that is made for excitement and titillation for the viewer versus being one-on-one, touching another human being, and finding and exploring each other's bodies and taking time with that. And so what ends up happening is that the brain of a young man is conditioned to have that, like, immediate, very titillating imagery and for sexual release. And so with a human, all of a sudden their penis doesn't work. And I've seen that. And so I've had the privilege of helping some young men work through that connection. Mm-hmm. And work on, because then what happens is, one time of not being able to have sex, then that lays on top of all the shame. Then is another layer that they have to work through, because then they feel like, oh, what if, and fear, like it's going to happen again. I'm not going to be able to have an erection. And so that cycle is really very powerful. So there was this one person in particular that it was the first time I had ever worked with that. Mm-hmm. And I was on vacation with my husband, and he said, why do you keep checking your email? You were on vacation. And I said, there's someone that I'm working with, and we need to do a test. And I'm waiting for the test results. Uh-huh. Because this person hadn't seen their partner in 6 months while we were working on this, and then they were going to see each other in person. Uh-huh. And so I said, I just need to just check 5 minutes just to see, and so yeah, I was like, yes, because they wrote, in the email the font size was like 100. Yes.
Oh, okay, not a photo, just text. Okay.
I could tell you a lot of stories.
Yes, that's actually what we need, actually.
So when I had new clients, and they'd say, I don't know if I can tell you about this thing, and I would say, nothing you could tell me could shock me. Nothing. I have heard of everything. So a fascinating thing is fetishes, right? Mm-hmm. So why is it that a man cannot reach a climax, right? They can't ejaculate without, let's say, stiletto heels, right? Mm-hmm. Why is that there? You would think, it's just something they like. No. If they can't have sex without the stiletto heels, there's a trauma. And so for that stiletto heels, it was a school teacher. It was a school teacher that spanked this little boy. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I want to say, which is really interesting, is your buttocks are a erogenous zone, right? So it's an area of heightened sensitivity for sex, your butt. Mm-hmm. And so spanking, right? There's a reason why people like the spanking if they're in sex play. So for this particular man, it was connected with that teacher spanking him, and she always wore stiletto heels. The teacher was always wearing those heels, and he made the connection And it came across as, I can't have sex unless my partner is wearing stiletto heels. We worked on those memories of the spanking, so that we disconnected that. Now, from what I hear, I haven't talked to him in years, but from what I understand, he still enjoys the stiletto heels, and his partner is good with putting on stiletto heels, but it's not a have to. You know what I'm saying? It's not, they can have sex and enjoy it many, many different ways. And one of the interesting ways that they can have it is his partner wearing stilettos, but it's not, I have to, I can't have sex without it. That's when it's a trauma. And I love, like, ooh, where did that come from? Well, let's explore that.
What else stories come to your mind? Maybe you have something.
Yeah. So I'll give you one of my interesting ones. I had a problem when a man comes and interrupts me. So I'm working on my computer, I'm writing an article, and Craig wants to come in and say, hey, you want to have lunch with me? I would get really angry, really, really angry. Now, a woman, no problem, no problem. My friend could call me and I'm in the middle of something that has a deadline and I need to get it out. And she walks in the door and she chats with me and I'm like, hey, okay, yeah, no, I have to finish what I'm doing.
Either am I. If this woman, like my mother trauma, something like that.
Yeah. So I'm like, what is that? Why is that? And just tapping, having someone help me with that. I found that when I was a teenager living in Miami, I went to the beach all the time with my friends and alone and loved the beach. And 3 times I had the experience of a man masturbating. And the way that they did it was that I would have to stop and I'd have to look. So I was being interrupted to look at him masturbating. And so those 3, that I cleared that, and it's not a trigger anymore. Yeah, it's gone.
Is it enough to find this particular event and to clear out negative emotions, or you need to do something else in this?
Yeah. For me, that's all that was needed. And for some of these other things, what is needed is the working on the fear of doing something. So if you're shut down and you don't want to have sex and sex is very scary, then it would be really like a shock for me to tell you, oh, now go have sex. Now we worked on all these memories. Go have sex. Go jump in bed tonight with your husband. That's not going to happen. So we have to work on the fear of like one little piece at a time. So imagine that you're in bed tonight with your husband. What might be one small thing that you can do that starts moving you towards being intimate? Well, maybe I could have him hold me for 5 minutes. Okay, imagining that he's holding you for 5 minutes, how is that? Okay, good. All right, what's the next small step that you can take? Well, maybe he touched my breast. How does that feel? Oh, no, that's too scary. It's too weird. Okay, so then we tap on that. So it's both. It's looking backwards and also looking forward.
And, what if I see that somebody else, my partner, for instance, my partner woman, as you, from this case, she afraid of my hugging her or doing something with her, and I see that she have fear. How can I help her if I see that this is her emotion?
Oh yeah. So what I will say is that it's not random who we end up being together with. It's like my terrible history is going to be like the flip side, opposite of your history, so that we're attracted to each other to either help each other work things out.
Yes.
To bring things to the surface that need to be brought up. My motto for relationships is it might not translate really well in Russian, but there's a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And so there's a reason why you got together, or you stayed together for a period of time, or you were meant to be together for the rest of your life. And no one really knows. So taking responsibility for, oh, you're triggering me. I better find out what it is about me. And I need to work on myself. And from that point of view, have I seen people change? Yes. Have I seen, because you change and your triggers are gone, does your partner change? Yes. That's amazing, because you're not in that stupid trauma dance anymore. And so I've seen that too. And I've also seen where a couple comes together, one works on themselves, and they decide, I need more than this. Let's work together. And if not, I'm okay leaving. I'm okay going. That's it. We need to step away.
And what about surrogate tapping in these cases?
Yeah.
For your partner?
One of the things that that makes surrogate tapping effective is that the person that you are tapping on behalf of, let's say, your girlfriend, you need to work on yourself enough so that you're completely neutral. You can't be attached. So I could surrogate tap for a baby on a plane that's crying, and the baby stops crying right away. If it's my baby, I won't be as effective, because I have my emotional attachment to, my stuff, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, it's because I'm a bad mother. Oh, I'm frustrated with the child. So the first part of surrogate tapping is for me to work on myself. So yes, I think that surrogate tapping has a place, but way before you do surrogate tapping, I suggest that you really do your own work first.
I saw you have a certification program on that issues, and we would like to create such school in Russia and on these issues. So we would like to invite you and maybe make Zoom conferences and maybe live events, whatever. I think a lot of specialists will be very interested. So how many sessions and days and months does it take to train a good specialist in this field?
So I started, it's just getting started. It's a small group of women that are going through their certification that I started in October. And it's 6 sessions, private sessions with me. And then it's case studies where they're resolving the issues around sex or around couples or around, so it's sex and intimacy, couples work, and dating. So they decide on one of those 3 paths to take, and then they do sessions where as the mentor, I'm reviewing their work and helping them with their client that is dealing with one of those things. And then we're doing monthly sessions as a group together. So it's going to end up being, I would say, about 25 hours or so. It's what's going to end up being. Yeah.
And how many months?
Yeah. This is the small group that I'm starting now. I'm keeping it small because I want, it's the first time I'm doing it. So I'm testing, but there's different ways that I could do it. I just decided I want a small group of 8 women. We're starting in October and we're finishing in April. And then we're having a live event here where I live. I'm renting a big house, and we'll all meet because, it's nice to see each other on Zoom and work virtually, but it's good also to get to see people and touch them and be in their energy. So, yeah.
And maybe you have usual roots of these issues.
some common roots of the issue.
Common,
Yeah.
like the most popular something.
Yeah, so the most popular is childhood sexual injury. So there are the things that we know are terrible, like someone having violence and they were raped as a child. I mean, horrible things where real physical injury happened as a result of imagine a full-size grown man penetrating a girl. Okay, so real physical harm has happened, and that's just that's like at the extreme, and where it happened for years. But there's also the trusted family friend, right? The neighbor that made you feel special, that maybe what we call here groomed, so gave you gifts, manipulated you and what ends up happening is that it feels good. Our bodies are meant to feel good with sexual stimulation. And so we get that crossed with, this is bad for me, it's shameful, but it feels good. And then, all of that gets wired. So there's all the way from that to, I've worked with women that were convinced, I know I had sexual abuse in my history. I see the signs. I don't want to have sex. I'm scared of sex. It just, and I tell them, let's tap on your fear that it's going to be some horrible thing that happened, because they don't remember. Let's tap on it. And so over time, when we find out the root, it could be as simple as, I sat on my grandfather's lap and he had an erection. Or I sat on my uncle's lap and I felt it was weird. So children are very energetically sensitive. And even if their uncle didn't have an erection, there was the uncle's energy felt yucky. And that was enough for that pattern of shame around sex to have started. And so it's important for people not to be scared, oh, there's probably something terrible, terrible back there. It might be that simple. It might not be, the worst of the worst, although that is there. But also many times it's just a touch, a glance, that kind of thing. I just heard of someone who they wrote down, they were a young girl, and she knew she couldn't tell anyone. It was such a horrible thing what happened. She wrote it down on a piece of paper and she stuck it like underneath her bed, and her parents found it. And they said she was lying because it was a family member that did it. So you can imagine, so that person might end up with a pattern their whole lives of, no one believes me. No one believes what I have to say. No one listens to me. No one cares about what I say. And so that's always it's always really interesting where these things come from, for sure.
And what about mother and father relationships? How much can it affect on sexual life of a child? Right. Even if the child doesn't know what's happening between them.
Well, I always say that you could end up like, let's say your mother's always saying aloud, oh, your father's a terrible, men are all terrible. Then yes, you pick up on some of that, but I guarantee you also have a direct experience that confirms that belief. So always starting with, okay, what happened to me that I believe my mother, and that sort of thing. Tell me about. I'm curious about Russia. I want to ask you, because we have. I mean, our culture is changing so much in the U.S. There's there are things like sexual gender identity, sexual identity. People that are now recognizing that they are attracted to same sex.
You mean homophobic things and homosexual stuff? You know, it exists, but it's all covered up, and we have a lot of homophobic fear and a very straight idea that men must be men, women must be women. And, you know, here we don't have this idea that men must be so gentle. They're different, and they must be different. They must behave different. They must play different roles in couple, in marriage, and so on and so on. So I would say I would say that it's traditional, like it's traditional.
Yeah, and that's so fascinating to me because in other respects, you give women a lot of opportunities. Like there's equal pay, there is equal opportunity in terms of education. You have a lot of female scientists and things like that. So it's really interesting to me that in some areas you're advanced, in other areas that you're more traditional.
Yeah, like society, in society we're all equal, but in men and women behavior, it's not acceptable to be like very gentle and sensitive. We have a lot of judging on such men that you under her shoe. I know that it would be translated a good way, and we have war influence because when lots of men went to fight against Germans, and so very big part of our men were just killed, and then the prisons and building up economy. So it feels like lack of men and men behavior, and seeing that good patterns of men behavior, they just were destroyed with this man. So, but in general, we have that idea that it must be traditional, and men and women in relationships, they are not equal. They're not behaving the same. The man must be like the leader in the couple, but what we see is that in many couples the women is a leader, but it's judged a lot.
Okay. And even in the younger, like your generation, you don't see women trying to establish very less traditional roles in couples?
We see that a lot, and we blame Americans for that.
Of course.
And we blame American culture and this behavior. And as I see this, it's a kind of child wants to be on the top, wants to get a lot of attention. So that's why women wants to be on the top, being a star. And so, but we have that idea that traditional structure is broken. It is broken, but we feel that this is wrong, and it must be like men must be leader, even if this is not happening very, very often.
Right. Well, then I think it's just right for good healing to happen.
Yes. And we're expecting you to come and to help us with this healing, and please teach us this instrument, how to uncover these traumas and how to heal them. I think there are a lot of different injuries. We would like to make Zoom with you, Alina. Can you share this on Zoom conferences, webinars for people who would like to study that?
Absolutely. I gave you a little sneak peek of a program that we run called Path to Passion, and each week is a different module. So one week is we call it Monsters Under the Bed, which is all about childhood sexual abuse. There's another week that we call it The Priest in the Bed, which is all about the religious culture telling you what's right, what's wrong. Then there's the doctor in the bed, which is about your physical things and how they can challenge you. Then there's one week called Who's in Your Bed Now, which is which is about the couple, the person that you're with, your romantic partner. If you have conflicts with them, of course you wouldn't want to have sex. So it's important to work on your couple's issues as well. So I would love for you to think about translating that as a way to get people started. So let's continue the conversation about
yes, and have Zoom conversation, and all the details please look in the description of this video. And Alina, thank you, and I would like to see you again, and hopefully we will see you soon. So thank you for this brilliant interview.